Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Conscious Eating Evolution series. I'm Karina, Conscious Eating Catalyst and Soul Relationship Guide, and have created this series to give you a more holistic overview around the transformative power of food, so you feel more enabled and empowered to make healthier and more mindful choices for yourself and this planet. And today's wonderful guest is Lori Ann Spagna, and Lori is a best-selling author, speaker, spiritual teacher, Ascension guide, multidimensional channel, intuitive, animal communicator, energy healer, light worker, visionary, and luminary who assists others to awaken to the alignment with the true divine source which exists within each and every being so that all beings can live their best life ever. Lori, I'm super happy and grateful that you are here with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about our conversation, and it's so wonderful to meet you and connect with you and the community. So, yay.
Yeah. So what I really want to talk with you about today is Ascension and our spiritual bond, or the spiritual bond between humans and animals. But before we get into that, I would love you to share a little bit about how you became an animal communicator and what this work is about.
Well, how I became an animal communicator was actually based on 10 years of volunteer work with animals in a very traditional way. I was working with animals as a volunteer, and I would travel around the world and work in not-for-profit organizations with animals. And I had an internal mantra that I wanted to be of service to animals on a global scale. I used to say it all the time, over and over again. And I didn't really know what I was asking for. And eventually what ended up happening was my brother died of an unexpected drug overdose. And when he crossed over, I started to get very clear messages from him in the non-physical world. I never had that kind of experience before, but it started opening up all kinds of things for me because the messages I was getting from him were very clear that he was saying, you need to change what you're doing so you can do what you love, or else you're going to end up like I was. Because up until that point, I was only volunteering for work with animals, and I wasn't fulfilled. I was miserable in my then six-figure job in corporate America. And I used to refer to myself as a slave, a good slave. And so when he died, it really made me look at life and realize like that was my big awakening, and he was my wake-up call. So I quit my six-figure job and became a dog trainer. I was hired by a gentleman who spent 20 years training service dogs for the United States military. But after his tour of duty was up, he hired and recruited people to work for him as a professional training company. And when I was working for him, I started hearing the dogs. They would talk to me. And at first it was just learn to listen, be quiet, listen to me, I'll teach you. So I would just listen because I'd be training the dogs and he'd be videotaping and critiquing. And he wanted us to do everything on automatic pilot. So the brain goes blank. And in that moment, in those moments of being on automatic pilot with the training, I could just hear them. And the more I tuned in and practiced, the more they would be teaching me. And then same with my brother. I was listening and I was watching and I was meditating, not even because I didn't know how to meditate, just because when I would close my eyes at night, I would be able to connect with him and I could see things that he was sharing and showing me and teaching me, and then I could hear. So it was a very long process of learning how to do that on my own with no teacher, because I didn't know, it was all crazy. But what ended up happening, to kind of jump to the head of the story, to the point of the story after that, was that after a year of that, I moved to Maui because my then husband divorced me. He was like, this is crazy. I'm not having any of this. And I moved to Maui and I got my Reiki master. I started becoming a healer. I started incorporating more spiritual and esoteric practices. And I started using them with a lot more disciplined consciousness, like direct engagement of intention focused application. And I got really good at it. And I was also studying with other masters, real true masters of the metaphysical and spiritual arts, and learning meditation and other kinds of practices And after a couple of years of that, and it gets even a little weirder, which I'll maybe not go into that for now, but not weirder, just weird if you've never heard this stuff, not weird to me at all. But eventually it just became the new way of functioning for me. I just started doing it after that professionally. After those 2 years in Maui, I started doing it on more of a professional basis: animal communication, telepathy, energy healing, psychic development, and it took off from there. But those 2 years, I'll just say this because this is like the punchline of the really rich, meaty, juicy stuff, is that in those 2 years while I was living in Maui, and even the year before that, where I was just starting to learn this, my whole life changed. Because you see, up until that point, when I was like working the good slave job in corporate America, my 6-figure paycheck, I was $150,000 in debt, credit card debt. I was 60 pounds overweight. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was eating all those crappy foods off regular grocery store shelves that have all kinds of artificial ingredients. I was drinking 2 pots of coffee a day. I was going to doctors who were pumping me up in massive amounts of pharmaceutical drugs. My hair was falling out. My thyroid was off. I was going to doctors every week. Nothing was right. I was manic depressive, like just really emotional because I was so sensitive and I didn't know how to manage it. Mm-hmm. What happened was, as soon as I quit the job and became a dog trainer, immediately I started getting healthier. It just started happening because I was happier. I started choosing healthier foods. I started eliminating the cigarettes and the alcohol. I don't think I even said this. I was drinking 6 beers a day, at least. Mm-hmm. So within the 2 years after I moved to Maui, all of that was gone. The debt, the weight, physical body weight, the pharmaceutical drugs. I have not taken any kind of over-the-counter pharmaceutical drug, medical drug, nothing mainstream medical in my body for over 12 years now, almost 15. My dog has not needed any pharmaceutical drugs or medical interaction for 12 years. She's a 12-year-old dog. All of it was gone within 2 years. The cigarettes, the alcohol never returned. 60 pounds of body weight, that came but went again, but all of it. So my point of the story is that when I got aligned with this right path and mission of mine, and when I started following my joy and listening to the animals, letting them teach me, when I started getting aligned with these higher, true joy and service and love and contribution, everything got right. And that's my point. And it was relatively short, 2 years, 2 years.
Oh, you're cutting out.
That's a long story, yeah?
Okay, no, it's I think it's giving a great insight into how you ended up and what you do and practice and love today. Yeah. So from your personal perspective, what is the role of animals here on Earth?
So I love this. The role of animals on Earth is actually to help humans, but not in the traditional way that we might think, like not through food, or it's more like to help us restore consciousness. And that's what they helped me do. So they're really just here helping humans to wake up, because if we look at our lives, and I'm a living example of this, if we look at our lives before consciousness, you can look at the world right now and you can see it's just not doing very well. Things are collapsing, things are not really working out, it's corruption, greed, whatever, go on and on. And if you look at, once you become conscious, how your life starts to change very quickly for the better, continuously for the better. This is the role that animals are helping, and they're really functioning in 3 ways, 1, 2, or 3 ways. One is that they're teachers, so they teach us, and if they live with us in our family life, they're teaching us about our own personal lives. Or if they live in the wild, they might be teaching us about that area of the planet, or maybe they have some information related to where they live. For example, the whales and dolphins, they are storing up information about all the waters and all the sea, for example. Mm-hmm. So they're teachers. Elephants, for example, are storing up information in their massive brains about the true history of Earth and of humanity's existence. So they're teachers, okay. And the other thing that the animals are doing is they're healers. So when an animal lives with a human, they're typically healing their human, helping their human to heal. when an animal lives in a geographic area, they're usually helping that geographical area to heal. So going back to whales and dolphins, for example, they actually are healing the waters. They're elevating the frequency. Their songs and their echolocation, their pitches, elevate the frequency of the water, clean up the water, bless the water, purify it, all that stuff. So this is the primary two roles of animals. And then they have a third role, which is similar to our role, which is they're having experiences. They're also expanding their consciousness through experience. So those are the three key roles. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely. So from that perspective, they are the healers, and we would look at dolphins, whales, or other species that are going extinct. What does that mean for the planet?
Yeah. Well, so to understand extinction from an animal's perspective, we have to shift our perspective. So we have to be open to a whole new perspective. The concept of extinction is an animal group or species makes a collective agreement. So we have things called contracts and agreements that exists in the non-physical realm. We could say it's a mental realm or an emotional realm, but it's beyond that, where they say, okay, we're going to exit, but our exit will serve humanity. And so the extinction is typically teaching the collective of humanity some form of a lesson or something that we need to learn. For example, to take care of our planet, right? That's an important lesson for us to learn here. But oftentimes with extinction, that collective, not always, but many times, will come back again at some future point, slightly altered or different, or somehow evolved and improved. We just don't always see that. We don't always realize it. So the species evolves. It sometimes goes dormant, but we perceive it to be extinct. This is from animals, so I can't document that scientifically, but I think it's documentable.
And so from your perspective, I would love to talk with you about Ascension and the Ascension process, what that is, and what role animals play in this entire evolutionary process that we go through as a human species at this moment.
Yeah. All right, well, we need to define Ascension, but before we do that, let's just say something that's so important, since we're on the topic of animals. So important for people to understand about animal perspective, and this is related to Ascension. And that is what animals ask of humans. The animals, over and over again, are always asking us to absolutely immediately stop sharing any kind of information. And they say this, I'll get that in a minute. They're asking us to stop sharing information of pain, suffering, or misery that is perpetuated on them, including abuse. And they actually pinpoint the not-for-profit organizations, charitable organizations that show pain and suffering of animals, that show misery or sadness. And I learned this actually, like a good example even is like the ASPCA commercials, where you have this beautiful songwriter, Sarah McLachlan, sing this song, In the Arms of an Angel. You know that commercial? I don't know if you know that commercial.
No, I don't know that one.
National TV. And they show all this sadness and pain and suffering of the animals. And the animals are always asking, please, that actually perpetuates our pain. That actually creates the very thing you don't want, which is to help us because you love us. Don't give your energy to our pain and suffering. Don't share and stop sharing information, pictures, photos about our pain and suffering. Instead, they say, share information, pictures and photos about how things are improving for us. For example, whales and dolphins in the country of Tonga have been given the rights of sentient beings, equal rights to humans. Now that is brilliant, right? So what the animals are asking is to share more and more of the good things that are happening. For example, cows now are being given more and more green pastures, grass grazing, free from injected RBHT free from artificial hormones and growth hormones, cows and even chickens and turkeys on farms. This is what they're asking. Share more of that, because that's what helps them. Sharing their pain and suffering is just giving the energy of pain and suffering, and it just creates more sadness and grief and creates more of that. Mm-hmm. So this is challenging for us because we have been trained as a human society to believe that by showing what's wrong, we'll fix it. But we're meant to learn, and this is part of Ascension, this is how it links in with Ascension, we're meant to learn that looking at the wrongness is not what's going to ascend us. What's going to ascend us, and we'll define Ascension better, is by looking at the right, focusing more on that, not ignoring the wrong, not pretending, not sweeping it under the carpet or going into denial, but deciding to change it by putting our focus on what's right and doing whatever we need to do to clear, resolve this, but really infusing the bulk of our attention into what's right. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the struggle, I think that is, or for me that as well, comes up whenever we don't share or don't look at what is like in misalignment. How do we find the other way of what would be in alignment, you know?
Right. Yes, you're right. We can't ignore,
mm-hmm.
pretend. We do have to see what's in misalignment, mm-hmm. and recognize it, and then immediately make a choice. This, whatever this is out of alignment. Therefore, my job, since it's become in my face, since I've become aware of it, it's my job in this moment, my responsibility to bring it into alignment. How do I do that? Mm-hmm. Let's do that. What's the highest and best way and most effective way I can do that? And in an appropriate way for me, for my body, my life, my living, all beings concerned. Then take action, make it so, take appropriate action, either with a third-party healer or an intuitive or coach, a support, a guide, someone who helps you, or if you feel capable on your own, great. Address it in a responsible, right way for you, and then move on. Mm. Right, so, but I noticed an interesting word, and you said, and that was like the struggle is. So even that word is an old paradigm belief system, and tells me you're still hooked into a belief system. There's a struggle. You're still struggling. Mm-hmm. That in and of itself is an energy. The energy of struggle needs to be removed, cleared. You don't need it. Mm-hmm. You don't need struggle anymore. But it's an old paradigm. So this is what, when we're talking about ascension, and this whole thing we've just been speaking about is really how the animals, part of their role is to show us how to work with energy and shift the way we do things so we can ascend. Mm-hmm. Ascension is the process where we each individually and collectively as a human species, and even beyond the human species, all of Earth and all of our planetary environment, galaxy, is waking up to become more conscious to new perspectives, new realizations, new ideologies, new understanding about where we've been that's not working. And I call this an old paradigm, right? I'm not the only one who calls it that. I also refer to this as a third dimensional paradigm. We wake up, we start realizing I got to get out of this old paradigm because of all my own belief systems and everything I've believed that was true that maybe isn't really true, everything I've bought into, all the energy of it, including, for example, struggle. I've got to get myself out of this and elevate and shift perspective, change energy and frequency and vibration to new perspective, new way of operating, new operating system, new way of being and existing, all new perspectives, all new realizations. It's awakening. Mm. So this is what we call ascension, right? And I'm kind of breezing through it much faster, but we're all going through this. And so what happens is, as we're waking up, animals are helping us. We're helping one another. And this old system we can see is starting to collapse. Why? It's just not fundamentally sound anymore. It's not fundamentally true or real. Mm. And so we see all of our own misconceptions, our misbeliefs, our misidentifications, our ideologies and viewpoints that just aren't accurate anymore. We thought they were, but they're not. We're elevating and awakening and shifting. And then we anchor into a new paradigm, which is based on consciousness, elevated consciousness, expanded consciousness. We anchor into this new paradigm, which is I call a fifth dimensional reality that's based in a whole new frequency. So do you know what the difference in the frequencies are, Karina?
The vibration?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
What's the vibration of the old paradigm, the third dimensional paradigm? What's that old paradigm? What's the vibration, the primary vibration?
I mean, I don't know, low.
No, fear.
What? Fear?
Fear. Yeah, so this vibration is controlled by fear.
Oh, fear. Okay, now you got it.
Yeah, so like if I don't go to the doctor, get a mammogram, I might get breast cancer.
Yeah.
If I don't go to the dentist, I might get a tooth cavity. If I don't brush my teeth with fluoride, that's actually a neurotoxin, I might get a cavity. If I don't pay my taxes, I might get arrested. If I don't go to school, if I don't get a degree, I might not get a job. If I quit my job, I might not get another job. Fear, cause and effect, fear. Worry. What happens if this? What am I going to do? It's also based on unconsciousness. What is fear based on consciousness? We'll wait and see what happens. Or I'm afraid of this, or I'm worried about that, or if I have anxiety about that, I'm depressed, I'm unhappy, I'm miserable, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's a paradigm of lack. I don't have enough money. I won't have enough money. I can't afford it. All of this is the old paradigm where you're in a box of lack and limitation. There's sickness and illness and suffering and sadness and grief and a lot of regret and remorse. It's just not a nice place to be anymore. No. And controlling governments that take away your freedom, take away your power, and religious organizations that tell you you're separate from your power, separate from God. And they teach you that you're sometimes a sinner or wrong or bad or shame or guilt or regret or remorse, whatever it is. Death and disease exist here. It's really not a nice place to be, but war happens here, or the fear of war. Okay, all those things go on in there, in that reality. And when you're in it, you think that's normal. Everybody in that reality thinks that's normal. And they don't know that they think it's normal. They go home and they listen to commercials that tell them they need to call their doctor to get Claritin Clear so they can be happy and have butterflies around them. But it's good to be sick because you need to go call your doctor and get Claritin Clear or something like that. You understand? This is this paradigm. So you have to elevate yourself out of that paradigm because the vibration is fear. So what's the vibration here?
Love.
Love, peace, joy, happiness, fulfillment, freedom, sovereignty, trust, safety, authenticity, realness, trueness, kindness, forgiveness, understanding, acceptance, allowance. It's not to say things don't exist here. It's just that's not the primary vibration. This is the primary vibration. So even if you have some overlap here, which you do, especially as you're going through this awakening process, you use these frequencies to elevate you out of here. Make sense?
Absolutely. So well explained.
Thank you.
That's
That's
awesome.
what I do.
Awesome. And so why do you think, so why is it so important for us to live a compassionate lifestyle to really help planetary healing to occur?
Yeah. So one of the most important reasons is because this old system is collapsing in on itself. And so if you're in that system, you're experiencing the collapse. You're experiencing, almost anyone can look at people in their lives and see some of their friends or loved ones experiencing the collapse of that system. So for example, I have a friend, colleague, not a close friend, but I've known her for many years, and she's involved in the healthcare system, and she lost all her healthcare, and now she's having operations done and surgeries done on her body where they're just machines going into her body and removing her insides, and she's in this loop of never-ending surgeries and sickness and illness, but that is her normal. And when she tells me about it, I think that's what she thinks is normal. In my reality, that it just would never happen to me. Never, never. And someone can say, how do you know that would never happen to you? And if they're asking me, it's because they're not in this reality. Because when you're in this reality, you know certain things will never happen to you. You know, 100% you know. And it's not that you're in judgment of someone in this reality. You just understand, you're wishing for their best, but you understand this reality is collapsing. It's not working. And you're getting stuck in like what I call, what's the word I use? Groundhog Day. The same thing over and over again. You know, if you know somebody who's got a job that they're miserable in, and they're getting, the money's getting sucked out of the job, and they're being paid less and working longer and harder, and people are being sort of let go from that job. They're in that paradigm. It's sucking the life out of people because there's no life left in it. So this is why it's so important, because when you get out of that paradigm, your experiences are going to completely transform for the better. The hardest thing for humans right now is that they're very programmed into this take a pill mentality, that somehow this should be fast and effortless. It's fast and it's effortless, but not the way they think. In other words, if we were to do a clearing right now as a healing on struggle for you and for everyone, we could do it fast and effortless. I can clear struggle. I can clear everything related to struggle for you in 5 minutes. And you will be so disentangled from struggle, you'll never struggle the same way again. And even if you do, you'll be like, oh, that's struggle. I'm not going to do that. We could do that in 5 minutes. The problem is that this paradigm is so entangled with so many things. You can't get through that in 5 minutes. It's not a take a pill. You can't take a pill and be done with it in a day. Not going to work that way. So this is what I refer to as 4D, because you're going through a process that could take a very long time. Little by little, bit by bit, everything changes for the better. It's a transformation. That's ascension. Make sense?
Absolutely. And I would like as this is summit or like around food, I would love to talk a little bit more about the animals in regards of like we're keeping them in factory farms. They suffer in the millions and land on our plate. And what does it like? How does it reflect how we relate? Like, how is our relationship reflected back in this situation to the animals that we have? Do you have anything?
Okay, this is a really good question. So let's first understand, in this paradigm, we actually believe and are brainwashed to believe, and there's actually programs in the unconscious operating, just like Excel operates on your computer. It's a program. It's operating whether you've got it open or not. To believe that we need animals to eat animals to survive. And if you clear that program off your computer like a virus, you don't have to eat animals. You realize your body. Over here, eating animals is a totally different thing. So that's an important distinction to make, to understand. We believe that we are required to eat animals. And even vegetarians and vegans, they're transforming the system, but it's still a lot of times, not always,
beliefs entangled
still entangled in that old system. So we want to understand that's not actually a requirement for our bodies, but we have to address the unconscious programming that actually links us into that. Over here, we become much more what we call breatharian. We learn how to feed off the breath of chi, prana, life, meditation. This is not an overnight process. That's a very advanced skill. I'm learning. I'm doing it now, but not 100%. I now only have to eat 1 meal a day. And most of my meals are through breath and sunlight. We can also feed from the sun, the light of the Son of God. But on the journey here, you might become juicerian. You might become, okay, I do juice every day. So that is, in a sense, I do juice, a full green juice every day. But nonetheless, okay, this is part of the ascension. And you might still eat animals. You might choose it, but you would definitely choose it differently. Because over here, you would put the humanity of animals first. So you would be choosing only, you might make a choice, only farm-raised animals. You'd certainly be making choices organic. You'd certainly be making choices grass-fed. You'd certainly be making choices humanely raised to the best of your ability. Those are choices along the awakening journey that we make. That said, let's make this very clear that animal nutrition, using animals for food in the third paradigm, the old paradigm, is one of suffering, but there is suffering there. But as we make new choices, and this is where every human being does have to make a compassionate choice. What kind of food are you going to buy? Because you see, in this paradigm, we're so brainwashed by money, the money system, that what the brain does is it says, oh, I don't have enough money to afford organics, or I don't have enough money to pay for grass-fed meat or animals. So we make other choices that aren't necessarily aligned with a higher frequency, right? We have to actually decide. We actually have to say, I'm going to choose healthier food. The other thing is I would like to introduce people to the idea that, because I'm not even an advocate necessarily of not eating animals. That's not what animals say. What they do ask for is compassion and care and kindness and humanity, humaneness, and being treated as sentient. But there's not every animal says don't eat us. Some of them say, well, when our body's done, eat us, but while we're alive, treat us well. Some of them say that. Okay, pigs never say that, by the way. Pigs say don't eat us ever. Don't eat us ever. Fish say, well, we eat each other. So it's interesting when you have an animal communication dialogue, what they say, right? Cows say, never take our children. Stop taking our babies.
Yeah, that was definitely something that I wanted to ask you. Like, what do the cows say? Like,
want us taking their babies, and that calf and veal industry really needs to stop. To me, that does need to stop. And
yeah,
I mean, you don't have to eat veal. You don't have to. You know what I mean? But that idea that people just do it, they're so unconscious of the pain and the suffering. They're disconnecting themselves. It's the same thing with smoking. If you think about smoking, the only way you can smoke, really, I know as somebody who consciously quit, and stayed quit for almost 15 years now, something like that.
So was it for you like a radical choice, like from one day to another?
No.
That smoking? Okay, no.
I couldn't do it that way. I could do a whole course on how to teach smoking. You have to get really conscious, because the only way you can smoke is if you're unconscious. The only way you can smoke, because if you get really conscious, you will feel every part of your body saying don't smoke. It feels terrible. It feels so bad. My body was screaming, this is killing me, stop it. When I got conscious, it got a lot easier. This is what I'm saying. In order to eat veal, you have to be really unconscious, because it's true. You do take on the energy that animal went through. That is true. So that animal went through pain and suffering. You're taking that energy into your body. And by the way, this is very out there, but since we're on it, you know, one of the things I work with is the DNA, and we have DNA that's wanting to be awakened and activated, and so dormant DNA. And what I know from animals and from the DNA and from everything I have accessed from the non-physical world and in my intuitive gifts and abilities, channeling and stuff, is that when you eat death, you accelerate your death process. So every time you eat death, you are speeding up your own death. Fascinating, right? It's not the same for plants, because plants have a regenerative aspect, and they are an aspect of Mother Earth, which can continually regenerate. So it's more motivation. The other thing I'd just like to, since we're on this, I know I might be pushing some buttons here, but I'll say this and then I'll share. You might want to go into the grocery store next time. I mean, I remember when I had this happen, even after years of my own consciousness shifting. And I walked in the grocery store and I was like, does everybody see that there's dead animals in here? It's now when I walk in the grocery store, even Whole Foods, even Whole Food stores, I'm just so skeeved out. I'm literally skeeved out. And I know that I have to bring myself into a kind of neutrality on that, but it's just, I'm not, it's a consciousness shifting. There's dead animals in here.
No, you cannot unsee what you then all of a sudden see.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not even saying you have to be vegetarian or vegan. I'm saying let's awaken, let's get conscious. And then as we become conscious, let's make new choices about how we eat, what we put into our bodies, and how we treat other living sentient beings who have equal rights. For example, whales are great teachers of this. All living beings have equal rights in the higher realms. And when we start coming into a fifth dimensional reality, we start to become aware of that, we start living that way. And we start honoring all living beings as sentient, conscious, with equal rights. We understand over here in a fear-based paradigm, rights have been usurped. Freedoms have been taken, lies have been told, manipulations have happened, deceit, all that stuff. We've done it to ourselves. So we've been living that way. But here, that's not the case anymore. So we have to make new choices, and we find new solutions.
So well said. And why do you think is this disconnect actually there, that we, for example, do have call some of them pets and we categorize others as food for ourselves? How did that happen?
Better, doesn't it?
What?
That just makes us feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Like calling a dead animal meat.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dead animal.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes us feel better, right? That's the way we placate ourselves. But why has all this happened? Because over here, we have needed to go unconscious in order to have this kind of an experience in this old paradigm. You couldn't exist in this old paradigm if you didn't go unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest part about becoming conscious is we're all becoming more sensitive. I mean, our animals are the ultimate empaths. They feel it all. You know, if you live in a house, I'm looking at my dog, she's sitting on the next to me over there on her bed. And you know, if something in the house is stressful, the animal goes and runs and hides under the, hides in their safe place under a bed or something. If something in the house is stressful, our animals are so sensitive, they feel it all. So we're all becoming more sensitive. And the hardest part of the awakening process really is when you start having to process through the pain, because it's very painful. This reality, it's awful. It sounds like a judgment. I don't mean it that way. It's just when we wake up out of it, why is it so important, really? Because as you wake up, as every one of us wakes up, we can transform this. Everybody gets liberated. Yeah. Everybody benefits. One person's change in consciousness, when you understand how we are all connected at the highest levels, that we are all one divine source. When we really get that, yes, we're operating as individualized beings. We have separate free will, separate free choice, individual souls, fragments of that divine source. When you understand we are ultimately all one, your one perspective change, whoever you are, is going to change the whole of humanity for the better. Just the slightest change. You see, over here, you think you're powerless. Over here, you go home, you drink your beer, you could watch TV, shut yourself down because you're powerless. You can't do anything. The system is in the system. The powers that be are the powers that be. You have no power. That's what happens over here. You learn helplessness. You start to think you're helpless. You can't do anything. So you can't make any change. But that's not true. Every person who wakes up, every person who shifts consciousness facilitates domino effect, 100th monkey effect, shifts consciousness for the whole, makes it easier and better for the whole to wake up.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. This is why ascension is real. Ascension is real, and ascension is happening, and this is a global shift. And the whole of humanity is waking up. And those who choose not to, they might not wake up in this lifetime, but doesn't matter. When I say it doesn't matter, of course it matters for every individual, but some people might not choose it but humanity is shifting and changing. The whole of humanity is shifting and changing, and that is an inevitable change. It is happening.
So we talked a little bit about it already, but how does eating animals, besides it's affecting our DNA as well, affecting us on a spiritual level as well? Do you have any further things that you would like to add on that?
I do feel like we covered a lot of that, but understand all energy. So if you're eating an animal who energetically suffered or had pain in their body or fear, trauma, you do take that on in your body. It does accelerate your own process of death and dying. And it certainly energetically reverberates through your body. So it's just so important to understand what you put into your body is energetics. And this is old paradigm. We have no concept of energy. And in this new paradigm, everything's energy. Everything's energetic exchange. Everything is a vibrational frequency based on what energetic it carries. So if you want to vibrate in harmony with love, and you need to elevate yourself out of vibrating in fear, and understand as you vibrate out of fear, you help the whole of humanity. The greater your capacity to vibrate and hold the vibration and be in the vibration of love, the more service, the better you can help those you love and care for, the more you can do, then your job is to get out of that. Therefore, if you're eating an animal that's fear, trauma, suffering, sickness, dying, whatever, you cannot as well hold that frequency of love. It's that simple.
Oh, thank you. And
can I say one other thing? I just want to also say, because to some people, if you're like a heavy meat eater, the idea of, I didn't do it overnight. And I don't, sometimes every once in a while, very rarely, I will still have a fish, because I live in Florida. There's fish everywhere. And I've had enough conversations with fish to know, but I make sure it's pole caught and ocean, not genetically modified, not farm raised. You have to be conscious of it, right? But you don't have to make that change overnight. Just by choosing little by little, step by step. The first thing I started with when I first started doing was just reading labels. And I took that old information, shop only the perimeter of the grocery store. That's how I started. I'd read labels. If there was something in there I couldn't pronounce, if it didn't grow on the trees or in the earth, I didn't eat it. I put it back. And you can find now it's so much easier. So much more healthy food, like so much more available to us that's healthier because consciousness has shifted. But you don't have to go from extreme to the other extreme overnight. That's a take a pill philosophy. You just little by little make conscious choices step by step. And as you do, your body will crave more and more of what is really vibratorily aligned with health and well-being. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That would have been my question of what can each one of us individually do right now from where we are at, like begin to transfer or transform step by step. So
yeah, little by little. You don't have to do it overnight. Go gentle on yourself. You do it from a place of self-love and self-care. Taking appropriate steps that feel good and right for you and for your body, and that feel respectful and honoring of yourself, of Mother Earth, of the animals. And as you do that, it just grows joy. You get happier. Like now, if I go for more than a day or two without like a really good, raw, fresh green juice, my body will start screaming, "Get me juice." Same thing happens with beans, because I switched mostly to beans. I do tons of beans. I love beans. I'll do beans and all kinds of combinations of different beans, and that's my primary protein now. So if I don't have beans for a few days, like my body will start being like screaming for me, "Get me some beans," But that's what happens. You just want more of what you love. Right. And that feels good. Then when you learn to meditate, when you start getting into meditation, and really, really working with very advanced. I mean, there's a lot of newbie teachers out there. It's all good, whatever feels good and right to you. When you get into working with really advanced and progressed teachers, you start learning how to tap into your own internal capacity to feed and nourish yourself. I mean, it's just so good.
Mm-hmm. So much to learn out there. It never ends. And so if people want to learn more about you, more about your work, where do they find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so they can head over to lorispagna.com, and that's LORISPAGNA, lorispagna.com. Most of what I do is, right now I'm preparing for a sacred crystal journey to Arkansas, where we are working with the crystals, and we'll be using these crystals to meditate and heal with and communicate with the crystals, because they have tons of consciousness, just like animals do. And they work with our DNA, and they help us do healing for Mother Earth as well. So I do sacred retreats. I do light worker, what I call a light worker boot camp, where we get to really work on our own internal healing journey and get into the deep stuff of, clearing out that unconscious stuff, coming out of this old paradigm, elevating into the new one. And I do a lot of healing circles and DNA activations and classes. It's all over there at lorispagna.com. And then they can get some great free gifts too. So I know the summit.
Yeah, they are definitely linked, but definitely share about them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a link on this summit, I know, that you put there for free gifts for animals. So you can learn how the basics of animal communication and telepathy in a class and how that works. And you can learn about the basics of animal healing and energy healing and how that works. You'll also get a class on some of the most magnificent things you can do right away to start communicating and healing with your animals and really working with them in ways that are new paradigm. Plus there's stuff on my website too. You can get a free DNA activation. Can I just say those links? Is that all right?
Sure.
lorispagna.com/free gifts/DNA. So if you go there, you can get a gifted DNA activation. You can start learning about how to activate your DNA. There's a class there as well, and there's an ebook. Then if you want to learn more about this sort of very esoteric stuff, very advanced understanding about Ascension, you can go to lorispagna.com/free gifts/starseed. And you can learn about Ascension and the role of people, what we're doing here, what a starseed is, what a light worker is, all those terms, and understand more of your role there in all of it. So yeah, that's lots of free gifts there.
Lots of exciting stuff.
Yes.
So my last question for you that I'm asking every summit here, every speaker on the summit is, what is your personal message of hope, if you have one for the audience?
This is my personal message of hope. Think of reverse engineering. Humanity is absolutely brilliantly, beautifully, wonderfully, fabulously, fantastically, phenomenally bright. And you might, from your current point of view, not necessarily see that. But if you understand that that is the ultimate outcome for all of us, and that is the light at the end of the tunnel, wherever you are, and you keep your eye on that, knowing that that is true, put yourself around people who know that that is true or who are going in that direction, and you will be in that direction too. Just keep your eye on the prize. This is the future for all of humanity. We are all waking up. And so whatever we're looking at or seeing at this particular moment might not be revealing that to you at the moment, but know that that is the truth. It's like reverse engineering. That's where we're all headed. We're all waking up. And just that's the light, right? The light of happiness and joy and health and well-being, and peace and harmony for all. All beings have this opportunity. And our job is to know that it's there and just keep looking for that light, because that's where we're all headed.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this message, and thank you so much for spending this time with me, with us, and sharing your insight and knowledge. I think we might have pushed a lot of buttons and cracked some beliefs open. So I'm happy you joined us.
I always mean it. I have a very kind of fiery personality, so I never mean to insult people. It's coming from a place of love, and because I'm not like dancing around egos, I'm just giving it, but, you know, use it for what serves you and what serves the greater good for all all the people and animals, So I only ever mean it with love. I hope that it's received that way. And other than that, I just want to say thank you to you for having me, and to everyone here who has listened live and in delayed playback, whoever's listening. Thank you for having me, and thank you for being here.
Yeah. So thank you, and thank you all for watching and joining us. And please, please, please stay tuned for more incredible content on how to eat to improve your health, empower your spirit, and thrive with the planet. Thank you. Bye.